Welcome to the Galen Trombley Show. You can find me on Facebook at Galen Trombley, on Instagram at Galen Trombley, and on YouTube at Galen Trombley. Spelling GaelenTrombley. Enjoy the show. Welcome to the Galen Trombley Show. Welcome to episode 132 of the Galen Trombley Show. My guest today is Dani King from TDC, and she is the business development manager there. And where did I meet you?
North Country Connection, the North Country Chamber, I think.
Was that it? Okay, that's what I thought, but my memory's terrible. Actually, I'm in year 3 of that program, and I'm trying to beat Seth Adams, and Seth continues to sign up. So my goal is to just be one more than Seth. But I met you a couple years ago. You were, I thought, a pretty cool position there. Now you switched over to TDC. I think a cool position there. I think a cool company. So you're kind of in a lot of important roles, and at least I think so from an outsider's perspective. I'll let you expand on that. But I'm always interested in seeing what you do, and I think you're involved in a lot of stuff. So I thought it'd be kind of cool to pick your brain and get to know you a little bit better. So, Dani, so there's the people that do not know you, give us kind of a rundown of who you are, where you came from, how you got the 2021 Dani.
Sure. So I grew up in Malone, just outside of Malone, New York. So I went to Franklin Academy. From there, I went to SUNY Plattsburgh, went to the big city for college.
East Coast.
Yes. I changed my major probably 4 times, but ended up with public relations. And it's a really great program there because they really push you to get involved in the community and get that experiential learning. So I got an internship my senior year, and I was with Steve Peters at the city recreation department. And as it was wrapping up and I was nearing graduation, he said, "Oh, hey, there's a job opening at the chamber." And I said, "Oh, I had no idea what it was, but it was a marketing job and it was for events and all this great stuff." And I was like, that sounds perfect. I had all this, new college grad confidence. I was selected to give the commencement address. So my ego was huge. Go. I thought I was like some big shot. I bought my first suit for the interview. It was great. And I didn't get the job.
This is at the chamber?
Yes, at the chamber. So, which they chose a much better candidate. But I was kind of like, oh, what now? So I was working a part-time job at a hotel locally, and I was like, you know what? I'll just kind of float along. And then Jody Parks called me and said, "Hey, we need someone part-time at the front desk." She said, "This is not a full-time position. It's not what you were looking for originally." But I was like, hey, it's a foot in the door. So I did. I was the office assistant. I answered phones. I helped tourists find brochures. I moved the conference room tables around. And about 3 months in, I was applying to jobs all over, just trying to, get into the PR and events game. And I had just gotten a call for a job interview in Austin, Texas, for like a business publication or something completely random. When you're just out of college and you're applying to everything on Indeed you can find. And I was like, oh, well, that's really cool. And the next day I came into the chamber and Sue Matten approached me and said, "Hey, there's an opening in the economic development department. We already had your resume on file. We think you'd be a good fit." And I was like, I have no idea what economic development means or does, but sure. That's great. I get to stay in the area. And so I jumped in with both feet. I still wanted to do events, so I started a wedding planning business on the side, okay. Which lasted about a year. And then I was like, okay, I'm kind of going half speed at both of these things and I need to just focus on something. So I chose the chamber because working with Sue, and I know you did an episode with Sue. I listened to that.
Sue's great. Yeah.
Phenomenal. Yeah, she was just
the nicest
such
person.
An incredible mentor to me, and she still is to this day. And so I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to give this whole economic development thing a shot. It's really interesting. And so I went back to school online. I got my master's in economic development and workforce development. And then the whole transportation cluster thing came to be, and NamTrans became, a real thing. And I was selected to step into the director role, the first director of NamTrans. And that was really interesting to take an organization kind of from the brainchild of so many great leaders in our community, and just make it an actual thing. from getting a logo and a website to just, getting the funding lined up and organizing the hard work of so many other people.
So you kind of just fell into where you're like, now actually we'll keep going to now. We'll go back and pick at it.
Yeah.
So, Chamber of Commerce, you were there up until probably a year and a half, 2 years ago?
June 2019 is when I moved to the TDC,
Okay.
formerly the Development Corporation.
Okay. So how did that transition happen? Because you're still in development.
Yes.
So,
I love economic development. It's such a unique industry because you're never doing the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
You're working with totally different companies with totally different industries and types of people and personalities from different parts of the world. And and you're, a part of something so much bigger, helping to bring, companies here that are creating jobs, and you see your neighbors and people that, who, find really great career opportunities there. And you just feel like you're really contributing to the heart of a community. And that's what I love about it.
So as the business development manager,
Yes.
So what's your day-to-day role? Like, what do you do?
Right. So, I wasn't looking to leave my last job. I was approached about this role, and I waffled on it for a very long time. I was very, very happy where I was, and it was just kind of a step in not a new direction, but a next step in a different direction. So at TDC, my role is really, I have my hands in a lot of different things, which is what I really enjoy. So I am, interfacing with our tenant companies. So not just, negotiating leases and finding companies to fill buildings, but also, meeting with them to find out, if they're having any difficulty with anything so that I can connect them to, either business services or, resources to help them be as successful as they can, or to expand and add more jobs, which is always a great thing. And also the workforce development side of things, which I really enjoy, trying to create more awareness about the opportunities that are in our community for young people to develop their career. Because, growing up here, you always hear that get out, don't get stuck here. It's, the whole mindset. And there are so many global companies that, you can travel, you can experience so much. But that those experiences and the opportunity is right in your backyard.
So, now having gone into the TDC, what's your focus every day when you go to something like that? Economic development, obviously, to bring jobs, and and I was reading through the website, and I'm familiar with the company, probably not as much as I should be, but I know enough of what you guys do. But what's your goal every day you go in? What do you focus on? What is something that you try to move the needle on each day?
It's different every day. I mean, overall, TDC's mission is to attract and retain real quality investment and jobs in the greater Plattsburgh region. So everything we do is working toward that goal. So we're a private, not-for-profit. We have a board of directors who, helps govern the organization and to make sure that we're staying focused on that mission and doing everything we can to move that forward. So when I go into work, I might be following up with a prospective company to try to find them space that will work for them. Or I might be working with a tenant to help line up a grant opportunity for training so they can invest in their employees to help retain the workforce they have. And that's what's so great about it, is it's different every day.
So kind of give us a background on the TDC, how many people work there, history of it. I mean, I did a little research on this, so, but like I said, throwing it in, kind of the space you have, the buildings you have, the land you have, kind of what you offer to prospective clients.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really unique organization. This is actually our 60th year, 60-year anniversary in 2021. There are 7 people that work there. And originally it was started by a group of business people who recognized an opportunity that, there is a lot of activity in Canada and they're looking to, come to this area. So they, put up buildings, and I believe the original intent was to sell them. And then they realized, that's not the market. They want to lease these spaces. So it's just completely grown from there. Right now we have, I believe, 19 industrial buildings. We just put up a brand new 60,000 square foot spec warehouse. It's 3 20,000 square foot suites.
Is this the one right behind your new office?
It is.
Okay. I'm going to ask about your new office soon too, but yeah.
But over 700,000 square feet of premier industrial space. Our buildings are impeccably maintained. We have phenomenal facilities and projects manager, Roger Livernoise. Anybody who's in manufacturing over on that end of town knows Roger. He is fantastic. And so it's good quality space, and we're more than a landlord. You know, we're really trying to help these businesses succeed and grow and do what they need to do to stand out in their industry.
So at TDC, you guys have locations on the base. I say the base, the old base, like the old, not base, but the old airport.
Yes.
Right. So you have that. You have the one down on Banker, right? Because you have that little space there on the right across from the town offices. And then Champlain, you have some too, right?
Yes. So
off of Route 11.
Our primary park right now is Air Industrial Park. So that's where along like Military Turnpike, Area Development Drive, Industrial Boulevard,
Like
all down
North
through
and
there.
Schombeck and all them.
Yep. So not all of the businesses in there are TDC buildings, but there are quite a few in there, and that's kind of where we're focusing our building and expansion, at least right now. The new building, our new office building, it's a great entrance to the industrial community of Plattsburgh. Then we have the Banker Road Industrial Park, where we have 2 buildings over there, plus some land that's available for build to suit. And then Champlain, there used to be building inventory that TDC owned up in Champlain. Right now, it's just land, so that's available for sale or build to suit.
Do you guys sell a lot, or is it mostly lease?
Mostly lease, once in a blue moon.
So the new building that you guys are in, because it looks, I mean, I've seen it from the outside. I haven't been in it, but it looks cool. It's obviously in a cool spot too, because like right in the heart of that little strip right there. So how's the new building? Because you guys were originally on Banker, right? Wasn't that the headquarters?
Yep.
And then you switched. You kind of went into like the new craft building for about a blink of an eye, and then you went there. So, so how's the new building? How's it suit you guys? Kind of, is there room for expansion in that? Obviously, I'm sure it's up to date and all high tech and stuff, but kind of build off of that space.
Yeah, our new office is unbelievable. It's fantastic, and the original TDC office is over on Banker Road. We actually moved out of there because we had a tenant who wanted to expand, and so our mission is not to have, a great office. Our mission is to encourage investment and growth of jobs. So we were like, absolutely. We moved out of that space and moved into the new craft building temporarily, knowing that we were going to be building an office. Mm-hmm. So moving offices twice in a global pandemic is not easy. And
times.
so definitely huge round of applause for the whole staff for managing through that. But our new office is really well positioned, not just in the industrial park, but also the view. I mean, you look out over the former county airport, and I mean, you just see
mountains.
The Adirondacks. It's just the mountains.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal. And so it's really a great spot for, in the future when things are more normal and we're able to invite prospective businesses in to, get to know the area. It's a great first spot to visit.
Have you guys found, I mean, with the border being closed, that have a big impact, or are you still able to do some stuff?
It's really difficult.
Yeah.
And it's a tricky subject because, there hasn't been a lot of movement as to what we should be expecting. Mm-hmm. So in the background, we still have a lot of great relationships with folks up in Canada. So we're trying to, plan for some things to re-engage those relationships once the border does open. And I know that there are a lot of great leaders in our community who are pushing to get some sort of plan for reopening. But it's just very difficult for the traditional prospective business conversations to happen the way it is right now.
Well, we were in the yesterday, the North Country Connections Year 3. Shout out to everybody there. But so Gary was speaking and Billy was there, also mm-hmm. Billy Jones. So they were both kind of, that was like the major thing was the mm-hmm. border being closed. I mean, if anybody follows Gary on LinkedIn, I think Gary posts every day about the border not being open. So, and the thing with Gary, I love Gary because he's been doing this so long that really he can just say what everybody's thinking and nobody, like, you don't have to tiptoe because he just says it and they're like, we all agree with you, Gary. So it's, or we all agree with what Gary said. So I think that he's, having someone like that in our community that's a big advocate, but also, where his position is and he doesn't mix, emotions or feelings. He's just like, this is what needs to be done for the betterment of the region. But I just figured, right now, obviously kind of not an ideal time, especially when we have, that's such a lifeline for us. Now, kind of, I guess, when you've stepped in, so you've been there almost 19, you said? Mid-19? So almost 2 years. How has TDC changed from 2019 to now? I mean, 2 years, obviously, rebranding was a big deal.
Yes.
And I know your website looks really good. And website, headshots, it's a very professional looking page. So, but how has things changed since you've come on?
I think, the rebranding is really the big piece of it. And there's been a lot of, just change in the faces in the organization in those 2 years. A new president and CEO just over 2 years ago. I came on board, it'll be 2 years in June. And then we brought on a digital marketing specialist. It'll be 2 years in October. So
Alyssa, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
Alyssa.
yeah.
She's incredible.
Yeah.
She's a real
Nice
asset
girl.
to our team. Absolutely. And I think that, trying to reintroduce TDC to the community, if you're not working directly in economic development or you're not a tenant in one of our parks, then you probably don't know who we are. And just by, in passing hearing, our name, it just doesn't really resonate. And we rebranded to how we are known in the community and have been for a while, which is TDC, which is formerly an abbreviation of, the Development Corporation of Clinton County. But that name, it led to, some miscommunication and misunderstanding.
It's a mouthful. Yeah.
It's a mouthful.
Yeah.
People think that, we're, private, super developer with, for profit, or they think that we're handing out money. They think that it was just really a misunderstanding of the true value of our organization to the community. So we have, trying to retain that really great history. I mean, 60 years in this community has brought so much, so much value, so many jobs, and just, impact of the work that's been done in the decades before, I was, even
born. Yeah.
born.
Yeah.
And so trying to retain that and, give it a new professional look with our logo. I mean, Boyer Benner Group did our logo design, and they worked so well with us and doing our website and getting us kind of really well positioned to have these conversations with, prospective companies and with our partners in the community.
So Namstrand, when you got in the Namstrand, kind of going back a little bit, you were you were founder, but you were the first director of
I was
that.
the first director,
Yeah.
not the founder.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't even know if there's a founder or whatever, but when it came to be that we were putting like that cluster, obviously you'd been in economic development a little bit, but do you find that being kind of put into that initial role? Because I know Joel's doing it now. And
doing a dang good job.
Yeah, Joel's just... he's a Class A player. So, he's... but going into that role, do you find that was something... Did you kind of dive in feet first and like, I just got to learn it? Or was this something where like, hey, no, I really understand this going into it? To me, that seems like a fairly big role and probably something that, with it being such like an economic driver of our area. And again, Gary talking about clusters and talking about these transportation clusters. How was that initially going into that? And how many years were you involved before you took that role on?
So I joined the chamber staff in 2014. I was that office assistant for about 3 months, and then I was an economic development assistant. And then it was 2017 when NamTrans was funded, and I was, brought on as the first director. Intimidating, but exciting. Working, in the business community of the greater Plattsburgh region, you recognize transportation equipment and aerospace is just, that's what so many of the manufacturing companies are, and that's where a lot of the opportunity is. And so I tried to position myself there kind of even before I took that role. So with my master's degree, I, did my final, case study thesis on cluster development. And I tried to, understand the benefits and the inner workings of like labor pooling and knowledge sharing and, geographic proximity and how that can benefit, a supply chain, and how, we're so uniquely positioned because yes, we have the cluster in the North Country, 50 plus transportation equipment companies in, such a micropolitan area it's impressive. But also the benefit of kind of the partner clusters across the border, the Quebec Ground Transportation and Aero Montreal, and these great partners that have this really wonderful foundation of how they're working together and how they're kind of creating entire systems to support these industries, and being able to just capitalize on those relationships. So it was a lot of, just trying to learn as much as I could and understand where, the actual founders of NamTrans, Gary and actually the Development Corporation at that time was super involved in, when, Bombardier, Novabus, and those first real players in the industry came into town, and recognizing that, this is a good opportunity.
So, like in a day-to-day situation, who are you, I guess back then and also now, who are the people that you normally work with? Like, obviously you have clients and stuff, but what other organizations, what other people, what other agencies are you involved with back in the chamber days and then also currently with TDC?
A lot of them are the same. In the chamber days, it was also working, on the membership side of things. So the business services that businesses who are chamber members can capitalize on. Now, as far as resource partners, it's a lot of the same. And actually, we just put out one of our marketing videos, and it says it in there, TDC's role in this community is as a partner, working with the chamber, working with, technical assistance centers like SciTech, or, the community college and the IAM and SUNY Plattsburgh, and pulling in every aspect of economic development from labor pipeline to, support services for these companies who are coming in and need assistance to learn how to do business in the U.S.
Do you guys do a lot with the colleges, like trying for like work? You talk like worker development, like trying to get them. I know. Is it Clinton? They have the what's the formal name of that?
The IAM.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, the Institute for Advanced Manufacturing.
Yes, Advanced Manufacturing. So do you work a lot with them or work a lot with the colleges to get like local kids or people coming to the area to kind of stay here through that?
That's the goal. You know, I think the pandemic has put a little bit of a hitch in a lot of the planning, just without, that in-person and the, just students having this weird hybrid learning landscape that's been the past year and a half. But we're really trying to push that because, obviously I recognize the value of internships and engaging with the college students because that's what got me to not move to Texas, And I think that, we're trying to, walk the walk. We have an intern that's going to be starting in our office in a couple of weeks, first week in June. So, trying to understand what it means to have a valuable internship, something that benefits us, but also shows the value of the business community and, what, someone who may be graduating, how they could benefit from it and what type of job opportunities are here. Because, a lot of our global companies, they're not on Ruger Street, they're not on Broad Street. So it's, they're easy to be overlooked.
Did you ever want to move out of the area?
Of course, I think that it's, everybody, no matter where you grow up, there's always that, I wonder what it would be like to move kind of mindset. But I've been very fortunate in my professional roles that I've had a lot of opportunity for travel while still living in the North Country.
How'd you come to Plattsburgh? I shouldn't say how, I know because it's college, but how did you go to, why did you go to Plattsburgh State did you apply any other place or was it just kind of out of the, an hour away, don't stay at home, but still close enough and go home on weekends? I
think that, I really like the family aspect of it, just being close. I'm one of four and we're all still in the area. And so it's really great to have, now that, I'm a parent, it's great to have, my son be able to interact with his cousins and his aunts and his uncles. But I think that, I think something because I lost my train of thought.
Staying in the area, not
yes.
moving out. Yeah.
There's so much about this area that's just when you're young and you're, trying to rebel against things and you're not thinking about, what's actually here for opportunity. You're just thinking of, my parents don't know anything. The adults don't know anything. I came to SUNY Plattsburgh because, I was going to be a broadcast journalist, and SUNY Plattsburgh had that program. So it was between Plattsburgh and Oswego. Mm-hmm. So I ended up choosing SUNY Plattsburgh. And
a little bit less snow, right?
Yeah. And obviously that didn't pan out. My broadcast dreams were crushed when I realized that you have to move around a lot and it's really not great hours. And
Yeah, the amount people move, like when you get someone, like I always look like Tom Messner's been here for 30 something years. I'm like, how did this guy like dodge the bullet of having to go like, out to Idaho or something and do the news out there? So that was it, broadcast journalism. And then you went from there to public relations is kind of within that. It's communications, right?
Yeah, it's in kind of the same department, which I think was what I wanted because I didn't want to have to retake a lot of the prerequisites. When you're in one of those, typical honor students in high schools, you take a lot of the college prereqs, so I didn't have to take a lot of the general education courses, and I still wanted to graduate early. So I was like, I don't want to work in television, but I have all these communication credits. What's left? And thank goodness I found PR, because through that, I realized I might not want to work in like corporate PR, but I met so many great people and professors and was involved with so many great programs. Like Professor Colleen Lemza and the Shine On program. That was a huge influencer of, most of my college education and how I decided to, come to stay in the area.
You said Colleen Lemza, right? I just joined a board. I'm on with her, and I actually have heard her name over and over again. I haven't met her. I probably should do some research and get her on here and talk to her. But what is she the professor of?
So she's a professor of public relations. I'm not sure if her
That's her title.
She
just did like the NASA thing with all the kids.
Yes, that's Shine On.
Oh, okay. So yeah. See, this is me. I went to college. I went to Plattsburgh State. I was 3.5 years, and I was like a flash. I kind of went in, did my classes, went home. Because I stayed at home. I was working. I was coaching. I was doing a bunch of stuff not on campus. So I basically went to Plattsburgh State by like degree only.
Okay.
So I really don't know a lot of people at Plattsburgh. But she did the NASA thing, and she wrote in the email with everybody on the board of like something about, well, once the NASA thing's over, and I thought she was like joking because I'm like, I don't know what she's doing. And they're like, oh no, you actually talked to astronauts, which I thought was like just blew my. I love space, so it like blew my mind that was something that she, I guess coordinated. But so we'll get away from that. But public relations. Besides, you got the degree in that. You went right to the chamber, right? So there was nothing in between that. But public relations is, you can use it in pretty much anything.
Exactly. It's all about, communication skills and written skills and how to basically communicate with your public.
Do you like writing?
In some respects, I am a procrastinator a lot of the time. So if I have big involved things to write out, I don't always get to it.
So you work good under pressure.
Yes, very good under pressure. I can crank out a 10-page paper in a night as long as I have enough Red Bull. God, not anymore. But no, and I think it's really important. You recognize the importance of messaging and how to relate a message to a large group of people or a specific group of people to where it's not going to get, like the game of telephone. They're going to understand what the intent is. And that's a really unique skill, especially in now this hyper-connected sphere of social media and online connectivity.
Well, I was actually going to ask how you stay organized, which I don't know if, like I said, you obviously stay organized. Maybe it's procrastinating because one of the things, at least a couple things I didn't know about you and a couple things I did know about you is that one, obviously your work. I know you're a recent mother, right? You have a little guy, right, at home?
He's 2.5.
2.5. That's such a great age. So little guy at home. I'm going to call you a farmer, maybe. We'll get into that because I always find, like, I follow you on Instagram, and I think you post more photos about, well, obviously your kid, which is totally understandable as a parent, but I think your next thing you post is just, like, chickens and goats and everything else. So, but how do you stay organized with that, knowing that, then I start looking at, you're on different boards and different advisory councils, and you're on all this stuff. How do you kind of package this all in a day and try to keep yourself sane? Because, again, we were just talking off air before we started. Both have young kids. That adds. I say this all the time. I didn't recognize this before I had kids, but the amount of free time you have before you have children, and you take it for granted. Then once you have kids, you wonder how you didn't get more done before you had kids, because now you get more done when you have kids, but it just feels like you never sleep. Or we're drinking coffee all day long. So how do you keep all of that together in your day? Like, do you have systems? Do you have kind of the seat of your pants? Like, how does it work?
I should have a better system. I really should. My phone calendar is pretty great for most things. I rely on, my colleagues for a lot of it. Like Alyssa, she is one of the most organized people I know. And so the marketing side of TDC is, she has it down to an absolute science. And I am eternally grateful for that. I think, the different boards and involvement in things both locally and, being involved with, the International Economic Development Council. So getting to speak with, people in the industry from, across the globe, really. I think it helps because, I'm not just focusing on one piece of the puzzle. Like, I'm not just doing, my work on project A, and then going home. It's okay. I have a call with this person and I have a call with, this board, and I have to finish this project by Friday. And it just kind of allows me to segment things, which might not be the most productive way, but it's working for me so far. Yep. Until I can teach my son to use Google Drive, and then we're just going to be set.
So do you have I always struggle with this as I'm trying to, I just get stressed out because I love what I do. Mm-hmm. It's just when you look at everything you have to do, and then it just gets overwhelming, and then it gets to the stuff that I'm not getting to during the day, and that stresses me out because I hate delaying stuff that should be done because I don't like to procrastinate. I'm kind of one where, like, if we can do it now, let's not wait till next week. Let's just do it now and get out of the way. But I do have a hard time with shutting work off. My mind's always racing. When I go home, I try to. I'm not good at it. Like, it's something that I struggle with. Are you able to really separate work, go home, hang out, husband, kid? That's kind of like family time. Can you separate the two, or is your mind like always taking projects home? Or
It depends. And I mean, I think I overwhelm myself with home projects too,
okay,
which was pretty easy to do, working from home. And then now, back in the office, and, going home and seeing, I've started all of these hobbies and we've started all of these projects here too. I think being able to be connected and still work from home when I need to, or, if an email comes in from a tenant after hours, I'm still able to respond. And I like that because it makes me feel productive and like I'm providing value that way. But I do also completely recognize the importance of kind of putting my phone down and just being really, intentional and present with my husband and my son. But right now we're doing a big like home renovation project. So it's like,
why not? Right.
Yeah. Right. The cost of lumber is, skyrocketing, but sure, let's add a dining room. And so I go home and there's, my husband and I actually had a similar conversation about, just kind of trying to put too much in a day. And prioritizing is not always my strong suit. But we're getting there,
I find that, when you're a kid and you just figure your parents have it figured out and you just like go through life and you're just like, I don't know, mom and dad take care of it. And I think in my head, I want to always do stuff and I always want to come across to my kids that they have at least confidence that I know what I'm doing, when deep down I know like I have no clue what I'm doing. It's just and I was one where I had kids. I just read about like a manual on how to raise kids. I was just like, I'll figure it out like anything else, because everybody's different. And when people always ask me for advice with parenting, I'm like, number one, do what works best for you, because it's completely different. What I'm going to say is going to be completely irrelevant to whatever you do, because everybody's got different schedules and work, and human emotions are a real thing with little kids, and especially at 2.5, full well. So it's like just trying to organize all that and like just recognize like your day's not really like you just don't know what you're doing every day. And I think I'm good at, when I say get stressed out and stuff, I'm very like things can happen and change. Like if something changed, I'm good. I'm flexible. I don't get like worked up if something changes. But I say that in the same breath as I literally live and die by a calendar, and I check my phone. I probably check, if you say like open your phone and check something on your phone, I check my calendar more than anything in the day when I open up my phone, because my memory's terrible, and I have like this deep down like kind of like fear that I'm forgetting something always. So I'm always like looking at notes or looking at reminders and be like, did I remember? Like, Danny's coming, and Danny's coming. Like, I probably looked and saw, like, my schedule today 30 times. Like, it never moved. Like, you were coming in at a certain time of the day, and I just continue to look at it because I'm like, well, did something get added? Did something get changed? And I'm just like, I don't know. It's like, it's a problem. It's a real problem. But I just find that we never have anything really going correctly. It's just kind of, you just stumble through life and figure it out. And life gives you more stuff and takes stuff away, and you keep adding. And I don't know. I just figure if kids look at us like we know what we're doing, then at least we're kind of faking it till hopefully they're old enough to realize, like, that's all right, mom and dad gave it the best shot. I didn't get too screwed up. So
cool, calm, and confident, right?
yeah, I love it. So farm life. Talk about your farm life here, because I don't know. I'm going to put that under hobbies too, but I think farm life, like, what got you into that? Is it just the fact you live out in I say Western New York. It's not really Western, I guess. Was it Northern New York? Is that what you call it?
Yeah, I mean, it's west of here, right?
Because they always say, like, Western New York is like Syracuse and out, and I'm
it's like Buffalo.
Central or Buffalo. I'm like, to me, I always think Western. I think Western is literally past the turnpike. I'm like, that's what, like, even Ellenburg. I'm like, that's Western New York. I had a buddy who lives in St. Lawrence County. I'm like, you're like West New York. He's like, we're not in West New York. I'm like, well,
West North Country.
West North Country. There we go. We'll call it that. So, how did you get into the farm life?
Oh my goodness. Can I say it's a product of the pandemic? I'll blame it on COVID. I think we can do that with a lot of things. But no, we were, it was last spring, and we were, looking at being home for quite a while. And when we bought our house, we live in Franklin County. Mm-hmm. So when we bought our house, we're the only house on the road. It's, but I'm like 5 minutes from a Dunkin' Donuts. So it's like literally dream location. But it has this big horse barn. And I was like, I am not responsible enough for a horse, ever. But I would really love something more low maintenance. I was like, chickens would be so much fun. We had at that time 2 dogs and 2 cats. And I'm like, oh, some outside animals would be so great. And I just kind of would get like the look from my husband. And when everything happened and we were stuck at home, I'm like, well, our son is, he's home. He's not going to daycare right now. It'd be great if he had something educational, something to do. And that's how the chickens came to be. We started with 10. And then before spring was up last year, we got 6 more. And then we have 6 more that are getting ready to go into the coop. And I was saying how I was at Tractor Supply and they had a bunch of chicks marked down to like $1 and they looked sad. And I was like, he's like, well, get 6 more then, And then okay.
Wow. So you got over that hump pretty quick.
Yeah. The big one was the goats. So that was actually, I think I really worked our first wedding anniversary on that one. It was like, what a gift.
Do you have to mow lawn anymore?
Well, they're in a run.
Okay.
Yeah. It's too nerve wracking for me to do free range, but they have a big run, and we actually just opened up the gate. So the goats and the chickens now like intermingle. It makes me feel better because I feel like our Kevin, our goat, he has the big horns. Yep. And he, I feel like, is a good protector of the chickens, keeps like the big scary birds and other things that'll come and get them.
You kind of have like a real life Charlotte's Web, right? Kind of going on slowly without like all. We actually watched like a portion of that like months ago, and I'll be honest, like I watched it as a kid, and you're like farm animals, and we watched probably like 20 minutes, and I just changed it. I was like bored. My kids weren't really into it, and I was like, it's a little more gruesome than I thought. Like the 70s, man, those kids grew up hard. So, or our parents, I should say, grew up pretty hard. But yeah, it's not like the feel good story of like Babe or like something else. So, Charlotte's Web, pretty wild. But so goats, chickens, how much maintenance do you have on these things?
It's, we want them to have a good quality of life. So there's some, cleaning out their little habitats and making sure they have enough, to eat and to graze, and trying to rotate things as much. My husband, as much as he was not excited about it, he's a rock star, and so when it's like 30 degrees below zero, he does all the barn chores. So I'm like,
is there a lot of it like, overall?
There's not a whole lot. I mean, there's 2 goats and 17 chickens.
But you're still going out and collecting eggs each morning.
Oh yeah, we get lots of eggs, which my family
tastes really good too.
For a while I was using Instacart, and my Instacart delivery driver randomly added a dozen eggs to our order one day. And I was like, well, that's weird. I was like, well, I'll use them. They looked fake. They were so bleached and white. And I was like, what? I'm used to now.
Well, when you crack the yolks are different.
Oh yeah, they're dull and bland. And I'm like, I like the brown and the blue and these crazy eggs, and the yolks are like the yolks are like orange, and it's
and they taste so much
they're
better.
so much better.
I gotta get some. I usually get my eggs from Matt Craig. And,
That's where I got my goat.
Oh, did you?
Yes.
I was gonna say, if you've ever been to Matt's house, his is like.
Oh yeah, no, I won Kevin Hart. I think it was the first
Kevin
kid.
Hart, your goat?
Well, that they named him. He had a heart marking on his neck
Oh.
when he was born. We just call him Kevin now. But yeah, he was one of the first kids that they bred. And it was right around my wedding anniversary when they were putting him up for sale, so it was perfect timing.
Have you? So you met Sarah?
Yes.
Sarah is like, Matt sent me a video the other day on Snapchat, and he goes, "Here I am sitting inside doing mortgages. My wife's literally, she's up like a nail gun going to town on building something." And Sarah's like this little backwoods like farmer girl that
She is
she's badass, dude. She's I give Matt so much crap. Matt's a good buddy, but I give him so much crap. But like Sarah legit like runs that farm, and it's crazy. And she does. Have you ever watched her videos?
Yeah,
On
on
YouTube?
YouTube.
Like she sits there and does like all these videos, and they're really good. And she's like putting up barns and feeding goats and doing chickens, and they have so many things. They got pigs. They like if you go up there, it's a petting zoo.
Yeah.
And
well, and they're doing like a really like the sustainable aspect of it, where like meat
Yeah.
production and trying to keep the food supply chain local, which is really important. And I was hopeful that we'd move into that, but I don't think I have the heart for it.
I think it's a lot of work, but she stays home and does that. So it's
Yeah.
like if you'd say, "Hey, TDC, see you guys," I'm now Farmer Dani. Like I think that would be maybe something you put your mind to and grow it. But it takes, like I said, it takes work when you start adding in. That's what I was wondering. I'm like, I know having like quote unquote a farm is not. It's not set it and forget it. It's not like, oh, it looks cool out there, but you actually have to like. There's some work to be done, especially in the winter when you get the chickens and.
Oh yeah, we only have a couple acres too, so I think we've pretty much maxed out our animal capacity.
Your agricultural.
Yeah.
Are you a formal
No.
agricultural?
No.
That's a great tax.
It is. You have to have certain thresholds, I think, for like money that you're bringing in. And I just give eggs away in exchange for egg cartons. So I'm really not great at the business side of it, which is ironic because that should be what I'm good at. I'm good at chicken cuddling.
Yeah. Now goats, what's the hardest thing about goats? I mean, what do they eat? Just meat, like different kind of like grains and stuff you feed them or meal?
They kind of just like graze, and then we give them hay to supplement it, especially in the winter. Most of that comes from the hay, and then a little bit of supplementary grain. And then I just love giving them treats. Right now it's, there's dandelions everywhere. And so that's my son and I'll go out in the morning and we'll pick dandelions and feed them to the goats. And
Oh, they eat that?
oh yeah, they love it.
So does your son like the animals?
He does.
Yeah.
We, it's hard right now because he's at like the perfect height for the goat's horns.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Kevin's still kind of young. So we go through the fence when we're interacting with them. But
So I guess motherhood. How was motherhood? Because 2.5 years, you're used to it now. You're in it. Like your day to day is just like
We're in it.
It's kid. So how has that changed from where you were before to now, having to factor that into the schedule versus again, I just said before, like before it's like you have all this time, which you don't realize you have this time, but you have it, and now all of a sudden you have this live human that like literally relies on you for everything in life, and whether you fake it or not, but you kind of get through and figure it all out. But how has motherhood changed in the last few years?
I think in a really great way. It's, first of all, it's a great outlet to do all the goofy things that I love to do. Like over the weekend, we decided to build, like, instead of a sandbox, we built a mud pit. And I just got to play in the mud, and just seeing it through a 2.5-year-old boy's eyes is just the greatest thing. I built a puppet theater, and so now he's obsessed with sock puppets, which I really shouldn't have started because now I can never stop. I sit down on the couch for a half a second and he's like, okay, it's time for puppets. But I think that, it's also, I'm trying to recognize a balance between my career and my role at home. And I am only, I'm getting to the point that I'm at because of my husband, who is the gold standard, like above gold standard. He is the most supportive and he's absolutely incredible. He's made so many sacrifices to make sure that, my career goals are really, I can still travel. I can still do these extra things. I can go to conferences and stay late and do what I need to do. Because, he's as hands-on of a father as, anyone would expect, a stay-at-home mother to be. Which is sad that you have to kind of make that exception, but
I think the lines are blurring a little bit on that, which
which is great. And that's the thing. I want my son to see that, I am, I'm working on, developing my career, and I can still, I don't want to say I can do it all or I can do both, but it's true. Like, I am a complete person. Like, I love the role of mother so much, and it's the best part of my life. But I also have a lot of passion for what I do. And I want to, really kind of make, a stamp on what I'm doing and making sure that I'm still developing myself and reaching for what I want.
Yeah, the teamwork aspect of parenting it's so important. And that's something that, like, my wife stays home with the kids, but I mean, anybody that knows me is like, my weekends I don't do a lot, because to me that's like evenings. I'm getting better at leveraging my evenings. So like after this, I'm going home. Like I have like a fairly early day today, which is nice. But like weekends, I want to stay home and just hang out with the kids. And there's still stuff you have to do. Like there's, you want to just kind of hang out all the time, but there's certain things. It's like you still got responsibilities on the weekends, but it's just nice. Like I always say, a perfect day for me is getting home at, evening on Friday and leaving the house Monday in the morning, because like if I can just stay home all weekend, I love it, because I'm seeing people all the time. I love people, but there's still, I just want a couple days where I just get to hang with the kids. I get to hang. I don't have to talk to people. I don't have to I can just do mindless stuff around the house, or watch them just go for walks with the kids, and that's just like an outlet for me where I can kind of calm my mind and just, like you said, see life through a young person's eyes, and just kind of see how the imagination coming out, and like turning something into a boat, or turning something into a rocket ship or whatever. And it's just kind of cool, and then it also makes you appreciate kind of stuff you saw as a kid, and then put it in perspective. And you, like you said, you relive your childhood a bit, and you're like, it's kind of neat to see it from two different perspectives. I don't know, it's rewarding, but I see you go from, again, your Instagram life, which is mom and farmer, and then all of a sudden I see you at an event, like suit, like full on badass, like demands attention kind of thing, and just like, not you demand attention, but I said your presence like demands attention, and but you kind of see, and you morph those two worlds. Like I had like Alex Berry was another one that came on, and same thing. She's like expecting her second. Actually, I just saw that the other day, a little girl. So that's exciting. But like she's another one. Like I look at you, I look at Alex, I look at these, a lot of these young people. Joel, there that you guys are so into the development of the region through. More of the business sector. I deal a lot with like residential stuff, but not as much with the business sector. And, seeing you guys bring in the economic aspects of the area, and seeing like a young person come in and do it. I always like look at that, very, with a lot of respect, but then with a lot of also like, willingness to learn from those people and kind of see what you guys are doing. And obviously the impact you're going to have for decades, in the community, which always to me seems pretty cool. And then figuring it out as parents, which is just like, again, and especially there's a difference. You try not to but mom and dad, there's difference. Like I feel like I do a lot, but when I use that as not even close to what my wife does. So I just find that mom is a totally different level of, like, I'll never be more important to my kids than mom. Because it's just like from birth. I mean, I'm looking at my son now, yes, I can do some stuff with them, but at the end of the day, they're going back to mom. And like, I'd be doing the same thing when I was a kid probably. So I always find that, girls that or women that have children and are in very like high level roles and are doing a lot of stuff, it's like there's so much more on their plate than what I have to do, because usually like having the support system is huge. Like my wife is very supportive, your husband's very supportive, but it's like if I didn't have that, like I always call my wife the CEO of her house. Like I'm there, I'm like a body in the house, but at the end of the day, like I'm doing what she needs me to do. And she's pretty much calling most of the shots at the house. And I love it because like she's got that unlocked, which allows me to go out and I call it kind of like fun playtime where I get to go out and do like adult things. But it's just tough. It's like, it's trying to like merge all that. But I look at like, you're someone that I look at that I'm like, you know what? Even if Dani doesn't have it figured out, she at least looks like she does, and I can take some stuff from her.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, I was gonna say you're making a good impact on me, and hopefully others too.
No,
but
I think it's also having a really supportive work environment, and I mean from the entrepreneur side of things, and like owning your own business, like you and like Alex Berry, and then for me, it's TDC is, and the chamber was too, just very much family is first, and I think having a having a leadership and an organization who really acknowledges that. And so that I am completely confident that if something happened, I can leave and work from home whenever. I can leave and disconnect and just do what I need to do with my family. And that's just, it's so great to have that in your back pocket.
I think that's something that's starting to become more norm now, and which I love.
Which
it's
is
just
so great.
Yeah, because I'm kind of like, I tell the girls here, it's like, if you have something like my kid's sick, then take care of your kid. Like working, and if you know there's going to be stuff you have to cut out, just like figure out what's most important, get what you can done. Like most of the stuff, as much as I stress about stuff, majority of the stuff will be there tomorrow, and you can take care of it. And that's always something I look at. I'm like, is it okay if I just punt it to tomorrow? Just take a deep breath and do whatever. And I think having that balance, in today's day and age, because I hate, one of the things I always hated, and when I went to college, it's why I didn't really go into the industry I went into, is I like having control over my schedule. And it's not because I just don't like if I go to work, I want to put in 100% effort. I don't want to go in from this time to this time, and whether I work really hard or not so hard, I'm there for that amount of time. Like my thing is like, if I have something to get to or want to go do something, can I just like bust my tail for 4 hours and get all that work done and leave? Because I want something else that I also value. And I think that's important. I try to do that, like I try to have that kind of culture here where it's like, if you have stuff you need to do, like don't feel afraid that I got to ask for the afternoon off because I have to go do something. I mean, like tell us just so we know you're not here, but it's not like, can I go leave? It's like, no, if you got stuff to do, like you're a human, just, work it around your schedule. If you got to work a little bit earlier in the morning the next day, then do it. Like you can, that balance I think is nice, where I think generations, past, it was like, come in this time, leave at this time. And it was very robotic. And I said, nowadays the lines are blurred more. You're more interconnected. Like you said, you can go home and you have email still if you need it, or your phone. I always joke too. Like I try to have times for hobbies, which I like golfing. Like even going out and golfing, you can still answer emails, or you can still, we try to go skiing in the winter to pass the winter. And like you can rattle off emails in the gondola and then you ski and have fun. And it's like, I like blurring the two so I don't feel like I'm like, all work and not having any kind of fun. And I try to blur the, meeting people each day and trying to have fun with those people and getting to know business associates better. So then they turn into friends. Then it just turns into like a way better conversation. And it doesn't feel as strict. Now, goals at TDC, like what are your goals? I kind of touched on this a little bit, but a question I had is like going forward, like you now for the foreseeable future, what are some things you really want to try to accomplish at TDC?
I think working on the workforce side of things and, developing, some sort of programs or initiatives, or even just connecting with what's already going on in the region so that our tenants have, a better feeling about where their workforce is coming from and that there is a solid pipeline. And I think that there's been kind of a shift in the mindset of, you need to go to, a 4-year school. It's the only option, if you want to do anything. And obviously 4-year education was great for me, and then some. I loved my experience at SUNY. I was from the area, but I leaned in a little bit. I joined a sorority and I, did all this stuff on campus. It was great. But there are a lot of other really great opportunities that don't necessarily lend themselves to needing to make that type of financial and time investment. Technical education and, certificate-based programs, for a lot of the companies in our region, that's where a lot of their workforce could come from. And so really trying to build on that and to bring awareness to the young people and trying to combat that don't get stuck here mindset. Mm-hmm. Like I completely recognize the importance of experiencing things outside of your comfort zone and, learning more about different types of communities and cultures and, expanding your horizons that way. But there is just such a, this negative association with, staying in the area, or, you're born and raised there and you're just stuck there. There's so much to be said for someone who's contributing to their community. And, a young person who decides to stay here and, like yourself, build a brand and build a business and work towards, what didn't you like about your community growing up? What can you do to, make a difference that, is going to help the next generation?
Well, like one of my goals, and I thought about this when I went to college. Like, I purely went to college at Plattsburgh to save money because I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I was like, you know what? I'll do it. I'll figure it out. It'll buy me some time, but I'll get out cheap. I'll have no student debt. Like, that was my goal for college. And when I got out and started doing real estate, it was more of like, hey, it's kind of buying time until I find out what I want to do. So it's always that. And then I say by the time I was 24, I was like, hey, I like this. I kind of like this industry, and I think I'm going to kind of double down and just kind of buy in and really turn this into something. And then it really got to the point a few years back where I started thinking, you know, while getting good at real estate is cool, it's very, I don't say selfish, but it's very self-centered, meaning it's me selling homes and trying to sell more homes. Like, that's great. But then at a certain point, I'm like, you know what? Can I affect more people? Can I do more to involve more people? So my goals have completely shifted from like me being, you know, the best agent or the top agent in the area to how do I use potentially my connections, my relationships with people, my knowledge, my ambition, everything. How do I do that and grow at a faster clip, but I grow with people to grow the area. And I think when I grew up, like, I hated when people said like, I hate the area. You got to move. There's nothing to do here. And at the time, this, you know, we're about the same age, I think. So this was probably like early 2000s into kind of like 2010. You always heard probably 10, 15 years ago. And obviously before that, it was just like everybody was, kids you go to high school with, it was always just groaning and like, we got to leave, got to leave, got to leave. And I'm like, I was always a very optimistic person. I was always glass half full, not glass like, I didn't look at this place like, oh man, this place sucks. Like, I always looked at it as we got some opportunity here. And now one of my passions locally is trying to switch that script a little bit and trying to hopefully, and this is obviously decades and decades long, but trying to make this a place where people don't look at like, I don't want to be from here, but I'm proud to be from here. And also I want people to come and say, that's where I want to move to.
Right.
And I've seen a shift over probably the last 5 years that at least I felt it, that I can see more and more people coming to the area and staying here. So I think we're on the cusp of doing that. And obviously I'm just kind of a cheerleader for like people like the Chamber and people like you guys that are, you know, trying to do my small part, but knowing really the people that are having a big impact are you guys on the front lines. And I think that I'm more of, I want to try to, I guess, build the hype around it. So more people build the hype around it. And then it kind of keeps growing, which is part of the reason I do the podcast too. Because I think it's nice that people that don't know who you are going to listen to this and be like, oh, I never knew about her and the stuff she's talking about. That's really cool. And then hopefully it adds some more like connectivity to people where we really kind of, I always talk about like rising tide raises all ships, like that famous quote, but if we're all rowing in the same direction, which is a better area, we're going to get there faster. And I think if people have the mindset of like, we can get there, when we will. Like, again, that's why I always talk about people like Gary. I absolutely love, because you just hear the passion when he comes, like he's talking from, like, that guy doesn't, I mean, he wakes up every day and is like, how do we get North Country from here to here? And I don't think there's anybody that I know that carries it more. Like, if I look at Plattsburgh as a Civil War battle person, Gary's like the guy on the horse with like, he's like the little, he's a short guy. We'll call him Napoleon. He's like a little Napoleon, like carrying the flag. And I always find that like all these people working in that direction, but you know, people our generation that are now stepping into that role and saying like, this place isn't a dump. It's really cool. And there's a lot of neat things to do here. I'm hoping that becomes kind of the thesis of our generation and future generations, that this place isn't maybe what we grew up with, I shouldn't say, you know what I mean? Like the connotation around like, it's not a cool place to be.
Right. Exactly. And I think it's all about, you know, learning from your network. Like, you don't have to move to a big city to meet people that have experiences that you can learn from and take value from. I mean, you just look at the different types of leaders in our community, and a lot of people you've had on the podcast, like you're doing it right here. Just trying to really pull from different experiences and different frames of reference and see where everyone's coming from, because that's where the value is. You know, it's not necessarily what you're doing, but it's how you can connect with, you know, other people to help the next person that you're working with, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And so, and this is going straight business at you, but take TDC, take our area. I went like, obviously we know what SWOT analysis is and stuff, but like basically what are the pros and cons? Like why should businesses come here? And also, I don't want to say cons, but what is something you guys are working to overcome that might be kind of a, a hurdle that you're always working up against?
Well, I mean, I think this area is just, we have geography on our side. And not only in the well-positioned an hour south of Montreal and a whole network of business service professionals who have been working with Canadian businesses for decades and understand the questions before the company even knows to ask them. I mean, that in and of itself is just a golden ticket. But also the quality of life. I mean, the four-season recreation and everything else that our community has to offer is just like the cherry on top, especially when recruiting people. And I think that people and talent attraction, I mean, that's the hard part, but it's not unique to this area. I mean, through my connections in IEDC and talking with developers and talking with, colleagues in economic development from all over the country, and workforce is always an issue. And I think that making moves like you're talking about trying to change the community mindset and make this a more, attractive place, and retaining young people from the colleges and retaining young people or bringing people back. You graduated and you left and you've done really great things. But a lot of those people want to come back. They want to be closer to family while they grow their own families or what have you. And so in just positioning ourselves in a way that we can kind of support that and build a stronger talent base is only going to help us in the long run.
So what do you think some of the things that you guys are up against, like that make it a little hard, or things that, like what are just challenges of the job or of the area?
I mean, there are challenges to everything. You are putting me on the spot, aren't you? I'm such a positive thinker, Galen. I'm just looking at the positive.
Is there stuff like I'll look at I guess not necessarily threats. I don't think there's a lot of threats to our area. I think there's more opportunity that we just have to take, we have to go for, and it takes work. But if I took our company, things that we're up against, it's, we're not the largest real estate company. We're a heck of a lot bigger than we were a few years ago, and that's something I'm always up against. It's also, trying to have enough agents to do certain things. I mean, there's certain things in my company that I look at that they're challenges, but it's not that we can't overcome them. It's just I have to focus on, I say a problem, but that's something that we need to fix or change or overcome. And it's not that it's going to hold us back. It's just something we have to put focus on and work towards. So it's just, a goal that it's on my list of we got to check that box and make sure we get past it. So TDC, do you guys find that obviously the border closing right now is, an issue? Is there anything that you look at that has made life maybe difficult, or stuff where you're listen, this is, a weakness in our area, and this is something we're trying to overcome? Maybe is it the mindset, like you just said, that people maybe the idea of coming to this area or, putting your roots in this area is not as enticing as going to a larger city or a more metropolitan area. I mean, is there anything that you can look at that this is something that we know is not our strong suit and we're trying to make better? Or are you guys kind of you know what, anything that's really a weakness, we just double down on strengths all the time and never really focus on it? Because I mean, there's different ways of looking at it.
I think recognizing, weaknesses and challenges is always a great thing, but I think it's focusing on which ones are worth your time. Our area, it's very, likely we're not going to attract the Googles and the Amazons and the big name for a whole host of reasons. But I think, we've really made a lot of progress in focusing on what our niche is and how we can, serve those companies the best way we know how. The border, I don't think we ever expected in our lifetime to deal with a border closure of this capacity.
It's a little wild, yeah.
It is, but we're doing it. I mean, we're making do. It's obviously having a plan forward is really important. And, with that being kind of still hanging over our heads, it's really difficult to forecast. But it's, just like you said, double down and do what we have to do.
Have taxes affected you guys much? Just New York State taxes at all? I
mean, not really in any way that I would, say absolutely. I mean, when we're talking business attraction side of things, there's still the 0% corporate income tax for manufacturers. And a lot of the conversations we're having are with manufacturers. And so, that's, again, focusing on the
Yeah, no, that's
that we
because
can-
I'm looking at from like residential standpoint. Like we've had people that want to come up here and like, yeah, we're going to scratch it because the taxes are high. And I know, obviously, New York State if there's certain incentives and stuff you guys are obviously
Right.
aware of that you can capitalize on. But I didn't know if that was something that because you see like right now there's a big wave of people leaving California, which is another
Right.
major state. And unfortunately, like New York State is, a lot of it's driven from the city, and obviously. Again, I'll take another stat from yesterday that I think 25% of the geography is up in the North Country, the 7 counties, but it's only 2% of the population.
Right.
So, what Gary said is like, and you just said it, like, let's not bite off more than we can chew, and let's not attract Amazon. They're not coming here.
Exactly.
But let's attract people that we know that we can get to that point. It's a little bit of stretch, but we know we can grow to that point. And I think a lot of that is just focusing on your strengths and trying to really focus on where your efforts actually make a difference versus wasted effort.
Right.
Even though it's the right intent, it's good intent, but it's not going to happen.
And I think just being flexible and creative, because the political climate changes all the time. And so, obviously there's a lot of leadership in our community that has some influence there, but just learning how to kind of roll with the punches and to make the most of, difficult situations and to create, an attractive,
Product for you guys.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, how to, make sure that, we're encouraging companies to make, not only the best decision for us, filling space, but also the best decision for them, and that they will be able to be successful here and to do what they intend to do.
Something I was going to ask you about. Oh man, I'm blanking. I just had it. Just a sec. I got some notes here for
good.
you. You know what? We're going to skip it. Maybe if we come back, if I remember what I was going to talk about.
Yeah.
So the other topic I had about, and I know this was a big deal to you because you had posted about it, but I thought it was really cool when you did your TED Talk.
Yeah.
So kind of explain how that was. Kind of give us a background on that.
Yes.
What is TED, and then kind of what the whole...
Sure. So, I think the original acronym is what, like technical.
I think it's technology, education, and...
something.
I was hoping you could know. That's okay. You Google it, but it's like, yeah.
It's popular.
Yes.
Everybody knows. That's not the common way to.
Smart people go up and talk on stage. That's how I look at it. Or interesting people that have something to teach. So
Yes.
How did that come to be? Where'd you do it? What was the prep like? What was the experience like?
Yeah, so it was TEDx. So it was the TED brand, but locally organized. So actually, Plattsburgh High School did a series of like a TEDx event, and it was hidden among us, or it was just trying to focus on. They had students that did talks, and they also had some people from the community or that had ties to the community that had a story to tell. And actually, it was my work with Shine On and Professor Colleen Lemza that I got the opportunity to do that. So my talk focused on my experience with Shine On. Looking back on it, I'm like, I probably would have structured it a little bit differently and, maybe spent a little more time on a couple points, but, hindsight. And the lessons learned from my experience there, and not just the coursework of it and the, as a conference planning, how to plan an event, and that's what the class was intended for, but actually the curriculum that we were presenting to at that point, the girls that we were working with. And that was like character development. And it's kind of like a buzzword, even in, the young professional, business side of things, everything's about like, character and whatnot, but actually digging into the framework that, kind of defines what makes a resilient and successful person, and recognizing what your strengths are within that and where you might need to try to build yourself up a little bit. So through that, there are 7 character traits that Shine On bases its curriculum on. And it's through the KIPP Charter Schools, Knowledge is Power program. I think it was based in Chicago, but it's, a charter school network all throughout, I think, the East Coast. I might be wrong there, but it's grit, optimism, self-control, social intelligence, zest. Oh, goodness gracious. I'm going to get curiosity. And one more that will come to me later. If I was writing them down, I could do it.
No, this is pretty good. Yeah, that was good.
But, it's the ability to work in groups and to navigate, the social sphere, but also how to overcome obstacles and, not get, stumped up if you fail at something, and how to, reframe how you're approaching a problem and just your resiliency. And through that, my talk focused a lot on the character trait of zest. Growing up, I was what my teachers would have called a hyperactive student. I was very, I performed very well academically. I was very involved, all the different clubs, and I played, saxophone in the jazz band and all that great stuff, but I was very loud, and I was very in your face, which was great for my cheerleading career, but it was a lot. And as, I got older, I kind of pulled myself back a little bit because I didn't want to be seen as the weird kid anymore. But then I, kind of just started to see how that, what was framed as hyperactivity could also be pushed in a direction of passion, and actually using that to fuel, working toward my goals. And so that was really how I looked at it, and how when you look at, my resume, you'll see a piece of paper and basically, my degrees and where I work now, where I used to work, and it's just totally one-dimensional. But when you build a network and you start to work with people and you start to be able to show more than just what's on that piece of paper, and that's where your character really comes in. And when you're able to show where your strengths are, and in my case, my zest and my passion for, for economic development, for making this region a better place to work and to live and to bring opportunity and collaborate with people, it's a real strength. And I think that, working through Shine On and in that process, that's how I discovered it. And it's also how I learned to kind of push myself out of my comfort zone, hence the TED Talk. Public speaking terrifies me, but
really?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's, which I think it does a lot of people.
Who was, I think it's the number one thing, even ahead of death. I think I read that somewhere, which blows my mind, but, I don't really get it. I think death would be scarier, but, what's the audience when you did the TED Talk? Was it young students?
It was a mix. It was community members and students. It was on a Saturday, I think. And so they sold tickets to it. So it was, but it was, really great because the lights were dimmed and you couldn't really see.
Yeah, it looked pretty cool.
Yeah. But, even before the TED Talk, I started to kind of push myself to take these opportunities out of my comfort zone, like the commencement speech. I was invited to, apply, and I was like, there's no way. Mm-mm. And then I was bored at an overnight shift at the hotel I was working at. It was a super quiet night. I had already done all of my duties, and I'm like, well, maybe I'll take a shot at it. And it was one of the coolest experiences ever. And so, just trying to push yourself out of that comfort zone and to explore, the curiosity and the grit side of that character development has really served me well.
Do you find, so public speaking, this was my experience. I want to see if you just talk about passion. If you have a passion and knowledge of something, are you fine talking in front of people?
It depends on the crowd, and it depends on a lot of things, because as is probably evident in this conversation, especially if I'm talking about something that I'm, excited about and passionate about.
This is the most passionate you've sounded, which is not a bad thing. I'm just saying you're now getting, you're going up a level right now. You're leveling up.
My brain, and I think this happens in a lot of people, it just kind of trips over itself. Mm-hmm. And then looking and listening back, it's just I totally screwed that up. I should have made this point better. I should have done this. This shoulda, coulda, woulda. And that just, I hate that. But such is life. So I'm trying to kind of move past that. I think the TEDx piece has showed me that, no matter how much I can overanalyze it and look back and point out all the flaws, I could make an impact on someone. I could, say something that resonates with someone, and even just one person, that's enough for me. Mm-hmm. And so I'll call it a day. And so I've been trying to take more opportunities like that, and especially in the professional sphere, because I think, as a young woman in a professional role, there's that imposter syndrome that it's really common, and it really hinders professional growth and taking new opportunities. So I'm trying to continue to push myself. Like I'm moderating a panel for the International Economic Development Council. There's this big economic futures forum, and I'm on the Young Professionals Advisory Committee for IEDC. And they reached out. They're like, hey, we need more YPs to participate in this. And so it's like, sure, I'll moderate a panel on aerospace innovation.
Yeah.
Sure. Why
go.
not? I have some experience, not a whole lot, enough to ask questions to other experts about it, but just kind of putting myself in that role and, trying to say, why not me?
Mm-hmm. What, if you don't mind me asking,
Sure.
Are you 30 yet?
No.
Okay. So you're still in your 20s.
I am.
So at what point, did you find that you felt like you belonged a little more? Because this was something I struggled with as a kid, like a young 20-something-year-old, like just trying to, feeling like I'm now in a professional setting. I'm with adults. I'm with adults that I've heard their names since I was a little kid, and now kind of like that like time warp of like, no, you're a peer now. You're not like this child, and
Right.
that took a little bit of time to get over. And then it also took me I got over that, but then I also had to get over the fact that like not only am I like kind of relevant, but like I actually know what I'm talking about, where I can step out not from an overconfidence or like a cocky standpoint, but I know I can hang when most conversations
Right.
within if I walk into your company, no, I'm going to be like, I got to learn. But if you put me in like a real estate setting, like I'm comfortable, and that's took me a while, and a lot of it was learned. But do you feel that you're at that level within your space? Do you find that you're still, I mean, we're obviously going to learn, but do you find that you're more confident in the setting that you're at? You just talked about like being a young professional, being a female young professional in certain, areas where economic development, I was talking to Sue Matten about this, and, she came in obviously at a time when she was looked at like an outlier. Now she's probably looking at like, she's been in it so long that people are looking at her as like this
absolutely.
huge, like, hey, let's just talk to Sue first, because Sue knows what she's doing. She's a thug. But so what's your I guess where do you feel where you stand now in regards to everything, and not what people might project, but like you personally, what do you feel inside of like? Do you feel that you belong in all this, or is it still kind of new?
I mean, I feel like it changes a lot, and I have to push myself to kind of say, like, what you're talking about. And I think, like you said, growing up in the community and then becoming a professional in it, it's difficult because there are people who, who have known you for a very long time. And, I grew up in Malone, so I don't have that as much out here, but it still happens every now and then. And it kind of is like do I belong at this table moment? Mm-hmm. And so I think really just trying to, apologies for the cliche, but lean in. And, I don't want to ever be in a position either where I feel like I, can't learn, because I am constantly, learning from the experiences and just the knowledge base of, people in the community, people just in the industry, and just trying to consume as much information and learn from as much as I can.
Because you have some good access to people. I mean, you have access to really good people. So it's like, I think if you're a young professional and you're smart about realizing like there's some very smart people locally that know a lot of their stuff, and just read about them, talk to them, pick their brain. And, I think that's something I try to do, is I really try to, if I see a news article or I see a or a paper or someone's giving a talk, I really try to like internalize what they're saying, knowing there's a lot for me to learn, and knowing that there's a lot of different sectors that I need to, like, economic development fascinates me. I'm not in it as much, but I know going forward, it's something that in my brain is something that needs to happen for our area. Because again, when I talk about my long-term goal, economic development is a major player in that. So it's like kind of understanding, hearing you talk, hearing Gary talk, hearing Joel talk about stuff, hearing, even Alex from like or Matt Boyer just talking from a commercial real estate sector, like the jobs are bringing in and the buildings are bringing in and getting tenants. And I think that for you, if you're getting invited to stuff, then you've made it. And I think in a sense, even if you're like self-confidence that's what I always get. If someone's asking me to apply or do something or go to someplace or be a part of something, then I'm like, you know what? I've done enough where they think I'm valuable. I mean, and then I kind of get like, okay, but I got to make sure I still show up and,
Right.
execute. But it's still the idea. And I have that too, where it's like, man, do I really belong, or do I really deserve to be here or do that? And then in my head, I'm like, you know what? You bust your tail every day, and you've been doing it for over a decade now. It's like you've you've learned a lot. And if people value that, then I feel like, okay, I have something to bring to the table. Then I have to make sure that I deliver on that, because I'm looking, and I don't see it weird, but anytime I get an opportunity, I feel that I'm still proving myself. So even though you're there, I'm like, man, I could screw this up and they're not going to ever invite me back. So I really, in my head, I'm like, take these, like, I try to be cool on the outside, but inside I'm like, okay, don't screw up, pay attention,
Yep.
make sure you're listening. Don't zone off like you're falling asleep, like up. So, but is that something that you feel more, like, still more confident, or is that like,
Yeah, I think I'm starting to get there. I think it's in each individual situation. There's always that moment where I'm like, okay, no, like, get out of your head. You belong here.
Yeah.
Like, you are able to contribute to this conversation. But, I've only been in economic development, like, 7 years now? That's not a long time. I'm still young. I still have a lot to learn. And I think that there's value in recognizing that. But then also it's really great when you're in one of those situations like this panel. It's a little bit out of my wheelhouse, but we had a practice session, and I mean, there are these very prominent, people who used to work for Space Florida and, work in the governor's office in Washington State and attracting, these companies. And yet I'm still able to, spur conversation and, talk even just tangentially about, what they know, and to, have these conversations where it's like, okay, like, I don't want to say like I belong here, but it's not necessarily like I'm the kid at the table. And I think that's a really important corner to turn, because your confidence is everything. Like you said, walking in and just trying to. What
was the thing you said earlier? We talked about parenting, something about looking confident or feeling.
Yeah, cool, calm, and confident.
Yeah, and I think that's a lot of it, just how you present yourself. And I mean, take the chamber, like, networking event. I know a lot of people now, so it's not as nerve-wracking.
Oh, yeah.
But I'll be honest, I go into networking still with high anxiety, even though I know it's like, no, nobody's gonna know you, nobody wants to talk to you, blah, blah. And like, I know I'm like, push that down, be positive, like, you're gonna see some friends, and that's still something that chews away at me, because I'm kind of like, I think everybody does when you go into, maybe not Christy Kennedy, but like everybody else, when you go in, you're like, I don't know if somebody's gonna, I feel like I'm just like a loser walking in there. And it's tough, because I think everybody plays those games in your head, but it's like, feel confident, be confident. And, these like affirmations you say as you're walking in, and then you get there, and then next thing you know, you're like closing the place down because you met everybody. And it's such a weird thing. And I do it every time. It's like, why do I get nervous about going and seeing friends and talking and just like relaxing? And like,
right.
It's, but the panel thing, that sounds pretty cool. So when you're part of, what is the International Economic Development Council, is that the same thing Sue's a part of? Okay. So kind of go over that again, because I know it's a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, it's the industry organization for economic developers. And I'm not a certified economic developer. I've actually taken all the classes, so now I just need to actually study and take the exam. But I feel like, I did my master's program, so I put in the sweat equity. I can wait on it a little bit, I say unconvincingly. But anyway.
Is that procrastination coming in, Dani?
Listen, I got to finish my dining room first.
Yes.
But no, Sue's actually the one who, when I worked with her, we went to conferences, and I started to see how, and it's something I've recognized even just here in Plattsburgh as well, is when you run into a problem, odds are somebody has solved it before. And so pulling best practices and trying to find, people who are experiencing things within economic development that you can learn from and pull from, and things that you can contribute. And then just continuing education, to learn more about, as economic developers, and as we look to, make our communities the best that they can be, as trends change and industry changes, and how we can, make sure that we're keeping up with that and not getting stagnant. And so I have been involved with the Young Professionals Advisory Committee for maybe 4-ish years now. I went to a conference with Sue, and they had this happy hour for young professionals. And I met all these really great people doing such similar things in much more impressive cities. They're metropolitan, just like a lot more, people. And but the things that they were experiencing were so similar to what, we're doing here in Plattsburgh. And so being able to, pull from, what they have to share has been really valuable. And so through IEDC, there's the professional development side of it and the formal like webinars and trainings, but then there's also, it's been, virtual for the past, year or so, and just doing networking events and having just conversations with other people to try to see, what's working, as we are going into, when we do our rebranding and our marketing strategy, talking with other people who are in, similar cities and, what's worked for them and what we can try and what, we might want to put on the back burner. And then also these forums and these like conferences and just having the chance to be in the room. And there's, when you're at any industry conference, there's always like this buzz of just like energy and, optimism and people that are, like-minded, but have different frames of reference. So it's not like you're sitting there with people who look and think just like you, but they have such a similar mindset and that they want their communities to be successful.
Do you pick these people's brains a lot? Like,
yeah.
Like you're still in communication between stuff and, fairly regular?
Every so often. It's more when there are, like for example, the YP, we do these like little networking like lunch hours where we'll hop on Zoom, we'll have a topic and we'll do breakout rooms and we'll, share ideas and answer some questions and try to come up with, just anything that we can use in our day to day. But being involved on the committee aspect has really upped that level of engagement, which has been really valuable.
How many young professionals are within that IEDC?
Yes.
How many young professionals roughly?
Oh, goodness gracious. I would not even know.
Like in the hundreds or more? 50s, 100, something like that?
On the committee itself? Or
No. Just in that, for I guess, young professional advisory. Like when you talk about the young professionals that kind of mingle and get together. Like I look at like 80 KYP, it might be, 30 people in an event. Like, is it roughly about that? Is it like more than that?
On the Zoom calls and things like that, it's usually about, 30 to 40 people, I would say. At the conferences, there are usually more, just because it's, well, of course I haven't been to an in-person conference in a while, but, there's the networking happy hours and there's the speed networking, lunch hours. And so you're seeing, different young professionals than you might be interacting with on the committee level or whatnot. But it's good to see, how many other people are out there that have a similar kind of career pathway and how they're positioning themselves.
Because I would say each month I have like regular Zoom calls with other people that own real estate companies around the country, around the state, and it's a lot of it is just picking the brains of people because like I'm really big on like asking like how'd you do it and like what needs to be done because like my thing is I know my level, which is like only so high, and I know I'm willing to put work in, which is usually higher than my level of knowledge. So then it's kind of like let me just tell me what I'm doing, so I'm not just like running around and like slamming my head in the walls and trying to figure stuff out. And they're like, well, no, do this. I'm like, okay, let me just do that. But it's asking for help and recognizing it's a way faster learning curve to ask people that have already done it. So when you talk about like networking, I always look at networking ideas, and this is a lot. I get this from the podcast too. Like there's a lot of parallels in companies, like real estate to economic development to staffing to whatever it might be, financing. There's a lot of stuff that I pull away from talking to people because a lot of it's business. There's a lot of parallels. There's a lot of mindset. There's a lot of this is I guess anything, but a lot of it gets stripped down to basic human. You talked to like character traits and qualities and stuff. And you were mentioning that before, like in the TED Talk. It's like taking those and really stripping down what we do. We all do kind of the same stuff. It's just we have a different product or a different service, and it's trying to merge like the confidence. You're trying to merge like organization. You're trying to merge the the learning curve or how you learn. And I find that goes a long way, at least for me, like picking the brains of so many people. Like I don't know, over whatever episode this is, but like I've talked to so many people and like kind of hearing different, like I said, age brackets and experience levels. Like you and Sue, it's very similar but different. You have different perspectives on stuff, but it's you take both of them away, and I just love like I don't know, just trying to find the similarities and then taking it back into my life and like can I get better after talking to Dani about something or talking or even a politician. Like, what do you guys like? What do you think about overall in the community? And like a Michael Cashman, like, what is your thoughts on this? And he brings a perspective, and it's like, okay, like trying to formulate stuff and grow as a human, which is ultimately kind of something I like doing, like learning.
It's all mentorship.
Yeah.
And actually, that's one of I'm leading a task force underneath the YP committee, and it's all about developing a mentorship program within the IDC as a whole. So connecting those, because, young professionals, it's really great to, network with our colleagues and our peers, but it's right back to that. There's so much we can learn from those that have been in the industry for such a long time and who have experienced so much. And so you don't want to just be in a room talking to yourself the whole time.
Yeah.
And so, we're hoping to get this mentorship program off the ground where we can connect either people who are considering economic development as a profession and are just getting into it, or someone who's, like at my level in a career and just wants to talk about career trajectory and what things I can learn to better position myself for, leadership roles down the road.
Do you guys take a lot of, I do this in real estate, but do you guys find that bigger cities, like larger populated cities, do you learn anything from there to take back?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, because the way I look at, like, in real estate land, like big cities, New York, LA, things like that, where typically Plattsburgh is about, I would say 5 to 7 years behind, maybe 10 years behind what they're doing. And I know that's true in fashion, true in music, true in food, and everything kind of stemmed from those major places. Do you find economic development similar? Like, we don't have it yet. They do, major, but this is something that we're planning for because we can kind of see the tidal wave coming up towards the North Country.
I don't know necessarily if there's like a time frame that we're, necessarily quote unquote behind. But I think that, when you have, metropolitan areas that have that density of people, and so they have more capability to do different types of innovative things and have different types of partnerships. And so that, again, it helps us with best practices and forecasting and how we can, work within the community to lay the groundwork and the platform for some of those things that are seen as being successful. And also, I think, with the world, especially right now in the pandemic, everything is so virtual and it's very hyper connected, and you don't have to necessarily be sitting in New York City to be in a conversation and sitting at the table in those rooms anymore. And so I think that might change the conversations as we start going forward.
I know it's changed my perspective a little bit in the last, was it almost a year and a half now? Like, different things that I was planning on doing where I'm like, you know what? This is now changing my mindset a little bit, that we can, because of the connectivity and because of, a lot of the stuff, like some plans that I have for the future involve just the fact that I can talk to people all over the world and I can sit right here. Because you talk about leaving the area. You don't have to leave the area anymore. Like, you can bring the area, to the area. And I think that's one of I'm hoping people take away, that's something we take away locally, is that we're more interconnected than ever, but Plattsburgh, North Country, whatever, it's like we're on the same playing field as everybody else. I mean, as long as you have technology, which for the most part we do, we're still, again, topic yesterday, broadband coverage and stuff. We're still getting there, but I mean, kind of pandemic wise, you talked a little bit about it because you got into farming, but how has things changed pandemic wise in your life overall? Like, how's it going back to normal? Because I know you had mentioned stuff, even trying to get the podcast scheduled. There's some stuff that you had mentioned about the whole pandemic. So how has things changed from basically where you were in February 2020 to now?
Well, I think that, the normal now isn't necessarily what was normal before. And I'm really thankful for that in a way. Being able to spend more time with my family. I live about an hour away. And so being able to be just as productive at work without having that commute every single day is something that I still find value in. So and again, the organization I work for is incredibly supportive of that. So having, that work from home a day or two a week, but still getting done what I need to get done. And I think that that's brought a lot of really needed balance into my life. Everything was so go, 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 go. And then we were just absolutely brick wall screeching to a halt last spring. And now it's like, okay, well, what parts of normal do we want to leave behind? And where do we want to go? And for my family, it's been a really great opportunity to balance that a little bit better. And I'm so thankful for that.
Yeah. it was very weird about a year ago, the April, May, when it was like you woke up every day and you're just home. But like I look back at it, and I spent every day with the kids, and you had your own routine. And as much as I tried to do hobbies and stuff, I couldn't. But it was still the idea, like it was kind of different just to like wake up and know I don't have to like go and like run out the door and like 8 to 6, 7 o'clock at night. You're just on. Now the hour drive, because I know you do live out in Franklin County. Mm-hmm. What is your go-to time? Like, what do you do in the hour? You got music, podcasts, audiobooks.
All of the above.
Really?
It
Okay.
totally depends on my mood. Some days are a complete audiobook ride where I just want to focus on just listening to something. I don't want to really have to think. I just want to set my cruise control and drive. As far as podcasts go, I'm kind of like a guilty pleasures type. I guess it's more like entertainment side. Mm-hmm. I'm obsessed with The Office ladies, Jenna Fisher, Angela Kinsey from The Office.
Danny, you just opened up a can of worms. Okay.
Oh yeah. I actually last year, my husband turned 30 in quarantine, and that was one of the surprises. Was I did one of those cameo videos with Angela Kinsey from The Office to do like a birthday shout out for him.
Was she nice, or was she?
Oh, she was great.
Okay,
it was awesome.
Because her character on the show was completely different than her in real life.
Wait, do you not listen to that podcast?
I've listened to it.
They're a hoot.
Yeah,
they're
I
so
mean,
great.
I should say Angela, the character, is very straight-laced, like miserable.
Oh yes, no.
Angela Kinsley
the
is the bubbly, like I'm saying they're complete opposite people in real life and character.
But I really enjoy just that kind of. It's like easy listening because sometimes the drive. We're really fortunate actually because when you look at drive times, I mean, I live, almost. Oh God, I don't even know how many miles it is, but
if 50 something miles.
Yeah, and I mean, if I was in a larger city and I lived that many, it would take hours and hours. Mm-hmm. And it's on a good day, it's 50 minutes, and I'm at the door of the office. And so I think that's one of the benefits of the North Country too. But I really enjoy just kind of using that as kind of like a decompression time. That way, I don't bring too much. Like if I've had a really like heavy day, I don't bring it home to my husband and my son.
It's a good transition.
It is.
Is The Office your favorite show?
One of them. Yeah, I know I'm so bad. Everyone is always like, well, what's a great new show to watch? And I am one of those people that's like, I need Friends and The Office and Gilmore Girls, and I am happy.
I don't know if you walked in. I have a Michael Scott poster.
I clocked that as soon as I walked in.
I got World's Best Boss. I got The Office decal, whatever it's called, like the actual like main screen. And then my wife for my birthday, I'm born on the 24th of December, so it's one of the two. That bobblehead,
oh my goodness.
She made me a bobblehead because I love The Office. She's
That's
like,
fantastic.
she's actually gifted bobbleheads to family members. She just finds it hilarious, and they did a great job. So, The Office is, God, I've watched it way too many times. It's now become just pure background music.
Exactly.
And when you have kids, it's just nice because I don't have to pay attention, and I can just like look up and laugh at a scene. And my kids actually like The Office.
Oh, wow.
So my son's favorite character is Michael Scott. And he knows all the characters. And my daughter, it was actually a proud dad moment. I had her saying Nard Dog at one time. And then I said, can you say Rit-it-it-to-do? And she goes, Rit-it-do. And I'm like, I said, Bebs, you got it. We'll call her Bebs. But Oakland's her name, but we call her nickname's Bebs. But yeah, so she had it. And I was like, I'm so proud of you. And then we bought The Little People.
Do you have the book? The picture book?
So the new one that just came out?
I don't know if it just...
Like the Dunder Mifflin School one?
Yes.
So I will go into that. Yeah, so I bought my daughter The Little People because she liked the Little People characters, and I had Michael, Jim, Pam, and Dwight. And she carries around... She's gotten away from it a little bit, but there was a couple months she carried around Pam, and she called her Pam Pam. So she would walk around and be like, Pam Pam? And I'm like, well, go get Pam Pam. And so she'd bring it to bed with her. But the Office book... Nicole, who works here, actually gave that to me for my birthday as my birthday gift, and I read it with my kids, and they love it. And it's actually hysterical. You just read through it. I'm like, this is whoever came up with this is brilliant because there's so many little like Creed is as creepy in the book as he is in real life, and like all of these like weird things, like Phyllis like googly eyed over the refrigerator, and it's just some funny stuff. But that is totally my go-to show. I think will forever be my go-to show, and. Yeah, it's just great. Yeah, so I've listened to the Office Lady podcast. The only thing is sometimes it can be a little much because it's like sometimes I listen to it and it's funny, and then sometimes I'm like, I'm a big like Joe Rogan. I have some comedy podcasts. I have some other things, but those are kind of my go-tos. So sometimes I'll put that on. Like I listen to the dinner party episode because like that's such a classic episode. And there's certain ones if I know, because I follow them on social media. So if they like post or doing an episode, I'm like, I gotta watch it at least. Like I might watch the Scott's Tots one because it's so cringy. Ooh. It's the cringiest episode. I'm
a little sweaty just thinking about it.
Yeah, it's the cringiest episode of all time. But that one, like. That one's right up there. The dinner party's probably cringy number 2, but Scott's Tots is the cringiest.
For sure.
And it's always the opening scene when he like pulls up the paper and Stanley just starts laughing because he's like 10-year mark hit, whatever. And he just Stanley like laughing. But, that's great. So any music that you said that's just the vibe depending on what you're feeling?
Yeah, I think my music tastes are just whatever Spotify wants to put together for me. Although my, like when they pull from everything you've listened to and make a playlist, I can't do that because I share an account with my husband. And then when I'm in the car with my son, it's, either Disney has a whole playlist of their movies as like little stories on tape. Okay. So they like recite, half-hour versions of, so I'll be going from like a 90s country to, some hard metal rock song to Baby Shark, back to Coco Melon, and then into, 2000s pop. And it's a ride.
Coco Melon, my kid, like I think every kid's watched that now. The one thing, we actually watch it and it's like, it's kids love it. It's actually good for kids. But we just sit there and rip on the father in that show. And every time, any kid I know, my buddy said this too the other day. He goes, yeah, we're in Coco Melon. I'm like, how? At what point did we start talking about anything but that to now we're discussing Coco Melon? Like legit, like in a conversation. Yeah. But the dad, when he wears like the flannel shirt. Oh, yeah. And there's also the scene where he's got, is it the pink shirt with the white hearts on it? And I just cringe because like some of the songs, I'm like, why is that? Like, can they make this any worse? And it's just.
When it comes to kids' TV, there is nothing greater than Daniel Tiger, in my opinion.
I've never seen that.
You're kidding.
I know. It's
it's Nicole, Mr. Rogers.
Nicole. Well, I know who he is, but I'm saying like they did an offshoot, whatever, like a spinoff. There we go. Spinoff. So she said it too. Daniel Tiger. Like we've watched Boss Baby. We've watched Coco Melon. Boss Baby I find great because there's so much adult humor. PJ Masks, kids like that. There's a lot of Netflix, but we started getting into Disney. We watched The Lion King. They've been on a big Moana kick.
Oh yeah, Moana was for a while.
Finding Nemo. They wanted to find Finding Nemo, so it's like getting to relive some of these shows too.
Well, it's hard because I remember growing up, my favorite movie for like a year. My mom told me The Fox and the Hound. I wore that VHS out. I can't even get past the opening credits without crying. Those movies are rough.
Yeah, Disney, man, they punch you in the face right off, and it's like, because you always think as a little kid, like, oh, cute dogs or whatever, and then you start like the storylines of some of these, like Lion King. We watched The Lion King.
I have to fast forward to like the middle of the movie. I can't even get.
Yeah,
through.
I was like,
can't get through
this like went 0 to 100 really quick, and then I'm like, these Disney people, because it's like. I don't know. Obviously they have succeeded, but like these kids love The Lion King because of the music and Pumbaa and all these things, and all of a sudden it's like the dad gets killed by the uncle, and then there's just this coup of like overthrowing the lion government there, and it's some pretty deep stuff. And I'm like, man, how did like people are dying? Moana, grandma's dying, and I'm like, can we just get through the movie and like be all cheery, and then they save the day, and I'm like, oh, good done that. I don't know. It's pretty wild. Obviously, Disney's making a killing at it. They've done a great job, but like Finding Nemo, like the mom dies in the first 2 minutes. I'm like, Coral didn't make it long in this movie, so
it's always like the first 10 minutes too. Like
Up. I knew we were both gonna. As soon as you were going with that, I'm like the first 10 minutes of Up. Oh. No words. There's no words in that movie, so this is the thing with Up. I saw Up much older than a normal person should have seen. I was probably 18 at the time, 19 when it came out, and I remember going to see it. I think I went with my girlfriend at the time. We went to go see it because I was like, that actually looks like a good movie. It's a kid's movie, but I'm like, it looks good. First 10 minutes, I'm like, jaws dropping. I'm like, what? And it's a very good 10 minutes, but it's very
it's
heavy.
So heavy. But that's
very
my
heavy.
Toy Story 3. I think that was the one.
Yes.
I was either in high school. I think it was in high school when it came out. And I went with my then boyfriend. And that was the movie we had grown up with. And so I was like, oh, we're all excited. And then by the end, with some of those, I was in tears. I'm like, I should not be feeling
Was
the
that
things
the
I'm
one
feeling.
where what was the little boy's name?
Andy.
That was when he just kind of like got too old to play with his toys. And
Oh,
he
yeah.
just like,
They go to daycare and they're almost like incinerated. And then at the end, you're like, okay, it's good. But then he still leaves. And it's just,
Yeah.
it's,
I think about that now with my kid's stuff. I'm like, what happens if he doesn't want Teddy anymore? Because my kid
God.
carries Teddy around. I'm like, out of all the toys, I'll get rid of all of them, but he's got this little teddy bear he carries all the time. It's like, if you look at photos of my kid, Teddy's probably in like 70% of the photos. So it's like,
you have as much of an emotional attachment
dude,
to it.
Teddy.
as I do.
Well, I mean, it's just because if Teddy leaves, that's like my like little boy like losing his teddy bear.
God.
Like I know it's like, and this is the stuff I think about it, and I'm like sitting there, and I just like the other day I went there. My kid he was playing on his computer, which is like his tablet. He plays all these games, which he's now downloading stuff, and I'm like, dude, like you're too advanced for me. And he says something, so I'm like, all right, buddy. So I go over. I'm like, so what are you playing? He goes, Dad, can you go back on your computer? Because I was like working. This is like early in the morning on a Saturday. I'm like, okay, well, I wanted to see what I didn't ask you to come over here. I'm like, oh, okay, take your time to yourself. And there was the other day he wanted to show my wife something, and I go show Mom. And he goes, can you stay right here? I'm like, sure, buddy. Because he's just like, I got this. Like I'm just gonna do it
when
myself.
they come out with sentences like that. I got home yesterday and my husband told me, he's like, yes, this morning we got up and Isaac, my son, he's like, okay, we're gonna get up, we're gonna have a banana, you're gonna put a battery in my Mustang, and I'm gonna drive really fast. And that was his morning. He had it all planned out and he vocalized it perfectly. And I'm like, oh.
I know. We always tell our kids don't grow up, and I'm like, you're just not listening. You just keep growing, and it's like, I don't know. I'm not going to go because Danny's gonna be crying here in a sec. I will be too. I'm like such a softie now that I have kids. But so Danny, anything else you want to talk about?
I don't know. We covered a lot.
I went through a bunch of stuff. I'm sure I could like dive into more, but I think I always look at. I've already said it, but like, I think what you're doing is cool. I think like younger people that are taking ownership of or kind of grabbing the baton of the future or the previous generation and leading the future generation into good things. And I think, like I said, building the community up, building the area up, just being a big advocate and big, like, vocal person, and also not just vocalize it, but back it up with actions is a huge thing. So I'm a big fan of the stuff you've been doing, and obviously getting to know you a little bit better is great. And I still love seeing all your crazy like farm life animals and like arts and crafts with your son. And like I said, it seems like you got a lot of good stuff going on in life, and it's
it is. And I try so hard not to like compartmentalize it because Danny in the suit who's talking to a room of people, I'm still the goofy mom who's playing in the mud pit and giving pet names to my chickens. And I'm just so grateful that I'm able to be all of these things, and I'm so grateful for all the opportunities I've had in this community and the people that have helped me and continue to help me along the way. It's a great place to be.
Yeah, it's cool. So, Dani, I appreciate you coming on. Anything, if people need to reach out, connect with you, how can they do it?
Professionally, LinkedIn is the best option. If you want some great chicken and goat content, Dani_Kathleen is my Instagram account. It's really, all it is toddlers and goats and chickens, but it's really great content. I'm telling you, we're coming up in summer. We're getting the garden ready. It's about to get crazy.
You know what? I got a lot of friends that are into gardening right now.
Oh, it's so great.
And it's funny because I don't know if it's just we're hitting the age now that's like become a thing for people, but I find that people probably from quarantine or from the pandemic, everybody's just like diving into different projects. So I have some friends that have some like really good gardens. I'm like, I kill any plant. There's no green in my room because they just die. But
get yourself a pair of overalls, and that's the first step. I'm telling you,
that's it.
It'll change your life.
That's it. I'm going to have to get some overalls then. So, Dani, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, look out for Dani. She's doing some great stuff. TDC, doing some great stuff. Great organization there. And that's it. That is episode, 132 of the Galen Trombley Show. Thanks for listening to the Galen Trombley Show. If you want to reach me, you can go on Facebook at Galen Trombley, on Instagram at Galen Trombley, and on YouTube at Galen Trombley. The spelling, GAELANTROMBLEY.